I'm joined today by Jen, who's going to lead the conversation around assessments. Jen's been doing some incredible work for us in the business. Um, I'll just let everyone join us, and it's great to see people. Oh, we've got people from Malaysia, amazing. South Africa and Japan, Czech Republic is really wonderful. During today's webinar, we'd love to have your questions. We've built assessments as part of a really important investment program for us into Jolly Classroom. We feel really passionately about print, but also that digital can really complement that. And one of the things that we found talking to different customers of ours is they want to do assessments for their pupils or students. They want to do it in a way that isn't intrusive, that's really gentle, that does it in a way that isn't scary for a kid to experience, is done in a way that saves time for a teacher, and is done in a way that can roll up the data and make sure that over a period of time you can see how a student's doing, how they're improving, and how we can help them improve over a period of time. So we spent the best part of a year building this. We're really proud of it. It's in Classroom today, it's in beta, and Jen will talk you through all of that, and I'll be back at the end for any Q&A. So I'm going to turn my microphone off. I'm going to let Jen lead the charge, and I'll be here in the Q&A. So please do ask away. Jen, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. First of all, hello and welcome to everybody. I'm so excited to be with you today and to see where everybody's from. I mean, it's such a global community. I did see somebody from Canada. You might know that I'm based in Canada, so that's really exciting for me. So welcome. I'm just gonna dive right in because we have such a lot to share. So I'm gonna share my screen with you right now. So first of all, I will just say that there is a lot to cover, and I'll do my very best to cover it as quickly but as clearly as I possibly can. And yeah, I'll do my best. Okay, so just to start us off with assessments. First of all, it's been in beta for a couple of months now. I already have had some amazing feedback from people, and please do reach out if you want to share your personal story with how it's going. We really welcome that. And I have also had a lot of people giving me suggestions or questions about how to make things work better. And already the dev team are making improvements based on your suggestions. So please do keep us in the loop with how you're feeling and what you're thinking about. So let's get started. So why do we assess pupils? I mean, most of you will already have your own reasons for why you want to assess pupils, but since we're such a global audience, there are many different reasons why you might want to. But I think the biggest thing is to inform your teaching so that you know what next steps you need to make and how your pupils are doing, and so that you can support those pupils really early on with any gaps or misunderstandings that they're having. Some people also have other reasons like external people coming in to check their data, like Ofsted in the UK, or even just your head teacher wanting to know a little bit more about how your class is performing and what you're doing to support those pupils who are struggling. When to assess pupils, our program is quite flexible, and we built our assessment tool to match that so that you can fit it in around your school and how your school runs. I'll dive a little more into this when I walk you through the platform, but essentially the writing is broken up into 6 steps or 6 sections, I should say, and they match our program. They are not flexible, as in you cannot do a writing assessment after just group 1. You would need to do it after group 1 to 3. Whereas reading has been built in a more flexible manner so that you can assess in those same 6 sections, or if you wanted to assess more frequently, you could just assess on group 1. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a moment. Who to assess? So again, depending on what your school requires of you, you can either assess all of your pupils, you can do it at set times of the year, or you can assess the students that you feel are a little bit weaker, or you can kind of mix and match. You can assess them all at set times, and then you can assess pupils that you're keeping a closer eye on more frequently. So it's really built in a flexible way so that you can figure out what will work best for you. Now, how to assess? There are 2 parts to our assessment. There's the writing part and the reading part. The writing part is meant to be done as a whole class, but you could break this up into smaller groups, particularly for the first assessment to make sure they understand how it's going to work. And you also could do it one-to-one if you felt the need for that. Reading needs to be done more in a one-to-one manner. But with reading, you can do it as a digital version. So, as in the pupil has an iPad that they're doing the assessment on, or you could print off a sheet and give them a paper that they need to read from. So, let's just take a little closer look in the tool. So, first of all, I just wanted to share with you that if you had a trial and you were just testing out Jolly Classroom to see if it was the right fit for you, it would look like this, where some would be unlocked and then some of it would be um, locked so that you would not be able to access those. So, this is kind of what it would look like. You can see that the assessment steps or areas where you would be assessing throughout the program are highlighted here. So after the first two assessments, you would not be able to access them on the trial version. So with this trial version, I just wanted to walk you through how to set up your classes. You would go over here to the School Management tab. And in this tab, you would have your name, the country that you're in. Here is where you could change the accent type or the print type, and then also the tracking categories. This is new for our assessment platform. This is just so that you can decide what kinds of pupils you might want to track in a different way. And I'll show you again afterwards how this might look. But for example, in the UK, I know a lot of schools would be tracking pupil premium. You might be tracking your SEND children. You might also have a separate category for EAL. And again, you'll notice that I've used different terms. So ESL, EAL mean the same thing, but in different countries and different schools, they might use one term or the other. So again, you can just select the term that makes the most sense to you. I would suggest no more than 4 tracking categories. So take a look at what might be the right fit for your school. Next, you need to add in your teachers. So for now, you can see that I'm in here. I have a star beside it because I'm the school admin. So with your subscription, whether you have a trial or a paid version, there'll be one teacher that's the admin. So they're the ones that will set everything up. And then they can invite other teachers for free under the same cost of whatever you've already paid. So I can now add in my other teachers. So I would just do this right here. So I would add in my teacher and I would add in her email. And then once I send add teacher, it's going to immediately send her a invite. So she needs to go to her email and open it up to get her invite. Now, I can assign her a class immediately. At the moment, there's only one class that's set up, which is my class. So I need to now, if she teaches in my class, then great, I can assign her this class. But if she doesn't teach in this class, then I need to set up classes to connect her to that. So let me do that now. Let me just add a class. You can see that Orca's class is my class. So let's do her class. Let's pretend her class is the Blue Jays, let's say. And again, here you've got the 2 different courses. So we have our Literacy 1 course, which does not have any assessments at the moment, so don't select that. We've got our Phonics course. So I'm going to connect it to the Phonics course, and I'm going to create a class. And immediately it pops up, do I want to assign a teacher to this class? So yes, I do. I'm going to connect Anna. You can see that Anna, it says that it's pending invitation. So it has been sent, but she needs to accept it in order to be connected. So I'm going to save that now. So now I've added one class and one teacher. You might find that, for example, maybe I have a teaching assistant who works in both of our classes. So I can add that person as well. So let me do that. Just doing this really quickly. And so now I want to assign her, and let's pretend she works across both classes. I'm going to add her to both classes. This means that when she logs in, she's going to be able to see where we left off with each class, which is really important so she knows where to teach next. But also when she goes in to do assessments, she'll be able to access all the assessment data for that class. So connected to that class are pupils, and we haven't added any pupils yet. So that's the next thing. If you don't have pupils, you won't be able to start the assessment tool. So the next thing is to add pupils. Now, I just want to also mention that we are partnering with Wand. So for our UK schools, I know 99% of UK schools use Wand. This connection will be up and running in about a month's time. And once that's running, it's going to be super fast and easy to add all your pupils to your school. For everybody else who doesn't have access to Wand, you'll need to add in your pupils manually. However, I will just also mention that the dev team are making improvements to this flow based on feedback that we've already received. So those changes will come. And by the way, I will also mention that training videos that I've created to help guide you through the process are all here on the training tab. So there's a whole bunch of videos where I walk you through everything that I'm going to show you today, but in a little bit more detail. So if you feel a little bit overwhelmed, you can come here and look at some more videos. And when there's a new update, I will add a new update video here. So once we have a new flow for onboarding, adding pupils and teachers and classes, I will create a new video here to guide you through so that you never feel confused or overwhelmed. So now I want to add a pupil. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to add my child right now. And I can add an email or not. I can add in their birthday. So let's pretend they're born in 2020. Okay, and this is a girl. Now, remember we set up the tracking categories earlier on? So this is where they come into play. If you haven't set up any tracking categories, they won't be visible here. So let's pretend that this girl is Pupil Premium. So I'm going to select this. So I'm going to just create that right now. And I just see that somebody's mentioning about different options. So the options that I'm showing you are not just for me, they should be live for you as well. So if you ever find that there's any discrepancies or you're confused, you can always take a screenshot of what you've got and send it to me or to the support team, which by the way, the support team, you can access them by clicking on this contact and you can send them an email directly. Screenshots are really valuable so that we can understand exactly what's happening. But yes, you're right. At the moment, the school management tab is for school admin. And at the moment, only one admin per school is available. But that is another thing that we're changing. We're going to add two admin. So the admin people are the ones that set up the settings, the teachers, the pupils, and the classes. If you don't have admin privileges, then you can only see your own class that somebody else has created for you. So hopefully that does clarify a few things for you. So one person will be in charge of setting everything up, and then everybody else as a teacher. And that is another thing that we're changing, that teachers will be able to, once they have their own class, they'll be able to add and delete pupils if they need to. So say a child leaves and you want to delete them from your class, you as a teacher will have that ability very soon. So these changes are coming. So now that you know how to set up your class, I just want to take you to a different class that I have set up. This is one that has access to everything. And I have pretended to create a class and I have pretended to assess all of my pupils so that I can show you the data in a little bit more depth so you can understand the power of this tool. So here we are. This is what my classroom looks like. Everything is unlocked. Let's go into the assessment tab on the left-hand side. And when I first come in, it's going to have your assessment dashboard. So my class called Butterfly class is right here. By the way, this change button will only be visible if you teach in more than one class. So pretend you taught in Butterfly and Robin, then if those classes were assigned to you, so say a TA, this is a really good example for a TA, they might be assigned to multiple classes, they can switch between them there. If you only teach in one class, which most of you will, you won't even see this change button. So here's my class, Butterfly class, and I can see that I have three different sections. So let's talk first about the class distribution section. So this section right here has the different colored buckets where my pupils will be put after an assessment. So the other really important thing to know is that the assessment dashboard changes based on, remember those 6 sections that we decided were set assessment times? So I'm looking at the first assessment part. So step one, groups 1 to 3. So after I've taught that section, I would assess my pupils on both the reading and the writing. And after my assessments are done, I can now see how my class is performing like a snapshot. So here's my class distribution, and I can see that 5 of my pupils are in the excellent category, meaning higher than 95%. 12 are in the good category. So now again, I want the majority of my class to be in green, whether dark green or light green. I don't mind. I want them in green, meaning they're understanding the phonics, sounds, words at 80% or higher. So right now I have 17% of my, or 17 people, I should say, not percent, 17 people in the green category, which is pretty good. I can see that I've got 5 in developing, 2 in support. So this red category, it makes me feel I really need to support these pupils quite a bit. And then 2 that have not been assessed. Now, there could be different reasons why they haven't been assessed. Maybe they're new, they've just been added to my class, or maybe they're send and they are working at a totally different pace. So maybe they've been assessed just on group 1, but not group 1 to 3. So I have 2 pupils in this category over here. Now, in this section here, the class distribution section, this is just a quick snapshot, but I can also click here on See More Trends. And again, I want to just look at the first assessment that I have just completed. Gender is a category that's automatically added, but here are the rest of my tracking categories. So pupil premium, send, EAL, and summer birthday. So in the UK, some schools like to track summer birthday because those are the pupils that are a little bit younger. So sometimes they like to see how they're performing against the rest of the class. So let's take a look at my pupil premium for a moment, and I can switch between reading and writing. So if I look at my reading category, I can see that my pupil premium, I have a few students here in the red, but my non-pupil premium, none of them are in red, which is really good to see. If I switch to my writing, I can see that I do have at least one pupil that's in the red for writing. So, and that also makes me think if I look at the whole class, the red compared to reading is a little bit higher. So I know that writing skills for my class is slightly weaker than my reading skills. If I look over here on the left-hand side, the assessment trends section, it's broken into the 2 categories, reading and writing. And again, this is another way to look at it as a quick snapshot. Okay, writing words is orange. So orange being developing versus the other 3 are in green. So that tells me again that writing and specifically writing words is a bit weaker. So this informs my teaching so that when I'm teaching my phonics lessons, I know I should spend just a little bit more time and emphasis on this skill. Now, if I scroll down to this section, I've got extra support groups. So after an assessment, my children will be automatically put into categories so that I can quickly create intervention groups so that I can group children that have similar needs or difficulties together to target that. So in my red category, I have 4 pupils, Jimmy, Chloe, Alfonso, and oh, Jimmy's double there. I see Jimmy's and reading letter sounds and writing letter sounds. Okay, so I've got 3 pupils, but Jimmy's weak in both of those skills. If I look at words, I've got the same pupils. So those pupils make sense to group them together in one intervention group so that I can work with them more on letter sounds and words for both reading and writing. Well, actually, for writing, I would just be worried about Chloe and Alfonso, but for reading, I need to take Jimmy aside and spend a little bit more time with him. And again, my orange category, I have some other pupils here, and I can take a look. I've got quite a lot of pupils here in the writing words and reading words. So I might need to think about whether I group them into 2 groups or not. And again, it's going to depend on your capacity, how many TAs or support. Sometimes schools have parent volunteers that come in and can help. So I can think about how might I group these pupils to be the most effective with the time that I have available. And this last section here is just all of previous assessments. So I can see who I have assessed last. So Tim was assessed last in reading, and writing was Aaron. So that is valuable as well if you just want to quickly remind yourself, who did you assess last? So let's talk about starting an assessment. So on this dashboard, I can at any time start an assessment, or I can at any time add an observation. So just quickly, adding an observation is really quick. Select the pupil that you want to write an observation about, and it will automatically have today's date. But I can change that if it was, oh, that was actually yesterday. I forgot to write this comment. I noticed that she was doing something. I can write my comment, blah, 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 and create the observation, and it will be saved on her account. So anytime that I go into Caitlin's profile, I have that, and that's really valuable. And you might have noticed that you can also add a photo. So I can take a photo of, say, a pupil's flipping their B's and D's, for example. I can take a quick picture of that and write a comment. And that's really nice to have that evidence so that I can take a snapshot of what's happening. Maybe I also write a comment about what I'm doing about it to support that pupil, so that when it comes time to report card writing or meeting with parents, I can look at the pupil's page, which I'll show you later, and all of the comments that I've saved will be there stored for me to remind myself what's going on with that pupil. So let's start an assessment here. Let's take a click. So here we are. I'm going to first walk you through a reading assessment. So for reading, remember I mentioned to you that reading is a little bit more flexible than writing. So I might have a pupil that is only ready to be assessed on just group one. So I can deselect group 2 and 3, and then I can select the pupil that I want to assess. Also, there are two different ways to assess them. You might want to download the reading sheet, which looks like this. This is group 1, this is group 2, this is group 3. So I might want to download that, print it off, and put it in front of the pupil. And then meanwhile, let's say I'm just assessing on group 1. I'm going to assess Trish. By the way, these little green ticks mean that I have already assessed these pupils on this, but for the sake of showing you, I'm going to reassess Trish right now. But you can see that I have already assessed my entire class. Oh, except Elizabeth. So actually, let's do her instead, because she has not been assessed yet. So let's take a look. Here is group 1, letter sounds and words. And in later on, we also assess them on tricky words and reading sentences, which I'll show you that later. So here are the questions that I'm going to ask her. If I printed off a page that she has in front of her, I can then just listen to her say the sounds. So she says, P, I mark it correct. She says this incorrect, so I'm going to mark it wrong. And I can click with my mouse, or I can also use the up and down arrow key, which is really fast. So I can just be the correct, 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 like that. And once it's done, it gives me a little summary of how she performed. And then I can click save and finish like this. And then there, she's done. I've done Elizabeth, so she's finished. Okay, let's take a look at a later assessment, step 3. And let's pretend, and you notice that in step 1, we've divided them up into each group, because in step 1, we're teaching a lot of letter sounds quite quickly. Whereas step 2 and 3, it's a little bit more review. We're adding in alternative sounds. So what we decided was, for each of these, we've broken it into 2 sections. So we split it in half, so that this is also really valuable, because let's pretend it's 2 weeks before you break up for a holiday or summer holiday, and you haven't finished teaching all parts of it. Let's pretend you've taught units 1 to 5. So you can't do this assessment on unit 6 because you haven't taught it yet. So you can at least do this part of the assessment so that you have something to track. And some schools require teachers to assess at set points of the year. And so we wanted to build this flexibly so that you could select what you had taught and do assessment based on that. So that's why we did that. Let's take a look at the later half of this section, because in this assessment, we have a few different parts. So let's take a look. So you've got letter sounds and you have words, tricky words, and sentences. Now you can assess right on here. So I can print off the page for the student and I can mark it correct or incorrect like this, or I can do what's called flashcard mode. So I can click here and I see the card and I see the three different ways that the child at this point in the program needs to say it. So early on, when this letter is first introduced, they only need to require to say the yeah sound. But later on, we introduce alternative ways to say this. So at this point, I would have this card up. The child would only see the Y letter, and then they would say, yeah, let's say. So I would mark that correct. And then I might say, can you think of any other ways to make that sound? And they might go, oh, E. Okay, great. Well done. Can you think of any other ways to make that sound? Maybe they can't. So that's fine. I'm going to mark that they didn't remember that it can also make the I sound. So I'm going to mark it like that, and I'm going to move on to the next card. The other thing that's really powerful is that you can sync two devices. So I, as the teacher, see this screen, but my pupil who's on another iPad, they see a screen that's very similar. It just doesn't have this card at the bottom to mark it right or wrong. It also doesn't have the arrow key on the side to move the card forward. All they see is the grapheme in the middle here. So they see this. They say the sound I mark it correct. It automatically moves to the next card and they see the next card. So then they say A, correct, E, well done. And we're just moving through it like this. So as I move through and I'm marking them correct or incorrect, their cards are changing on their device. Now, how we sync the two devices is a little bit confusing to explain without you seeing something, but I have created a really great video in the training videos to show you how to sync the two devices. So I really recommend that you watch that video. So let's just go through this kind of quickly. We're marking them right or wrong. Now we're in tricky words. You can always tell where you're at because it will tell you up at the top here. Sentences are introduced in step 2. When a student has a sentence, they will only see one sentence on the screen at a time. So as a child is reading the sentence, anytime they make a mistake, you just click on the word to mark it as an error. If they read it and correct themselves as a self-correct, you click it one more time to mark that they have self-corrected that mistake. We want to encourage that they're self-correcting. So anytime they make a self-correction, it does not count in a negative way towards their final score. So that we really want that. As they read, we're just marking any mistakes. Let's pretend I accidentally click on it and I don't want it to be marked. I just click it again and again until it's gone so that you can see that it's clicked all the way through. Okay, so then I go to the next sentence. There's always 4 sentences. Next sentence. And then the last sentence, and now I'm finished. So I'm going to click the finish button here. So this is Freddie's assessment. I can see his name at the top. It's unit 4 to 6. I can have a little look through to see how he did. Anything that's red, he got wrong. Sentences are a little bit different because remember, any mistake they make is red. Any self-corrections are blue. And even if I like later remember, oh, why did skates, he didn't say skates wrong. Why was that marked wrong? I can just change it. And you might notice down here, this is the marking bar for sentences. Any mistake moves it down a level, but any self-correction doesn't count towards the final score. Okay, so
Jen,
one, Yeah.
Sorry, Holly. We got just a question in the chat just asking if the marking bar is visible to the pupil as well.
No,
I'll just
absolutely
clarify
not.
that it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a really good question. So what I see as a teacher is I see the marking bar and I see the arrow key to move it forward or back, but the pupil doesn't see that. So the pupil is only going to see the sentence or the word or the grapheme. They will not see anything else. And it's really important that students don't see what you're doing, right? So if you're syncing up two devices, I would suggest that they're sitting opposite you so that they're not aware of what you're doing. We don't want to distract them. We don't want them to know when they're making mistakes or anything like that. We want them to feel really confident that, they're doing the best they can and that's great. I just saw also Pupil Premium. So if you're in the US, you would call it free and reduced lunch. So it's just any pupil that is at a slight disadvantage to your normal pupils. And again, if you saw any of those tracking comments from before that don't make sense to you as a school, then I wouldn't select them. We did have one category that we just called at risk. So that could be whatever you want it to mean. So as a school, you would decide, oh, for us, at risk means these type of pupils. We wanted to try to think of as many tracking categories that were relevant to all the different schools around the world. So hopefully we found something that will work for you. So just to finish this assessment up, this one is done. I must remember to save and finish this assessment. Otherwise, it won't be saved. So I'm going to just do that right now. You can see my summary down here of this pupil. I'm going to save it right now for Freddie. And that is done. So he's the only one that's been assessed on step 1, unit 4 to 6. So that is finished. So we've talked about reading. Let's talk about writing. And so I just saw another question about whether the pupils see the results. So I would say that that's really up to you as a teacher and a school. But I know that a lot of times it's more valuable that you're gathering the data. You're not telling them whether they are making errors or not. And then the data is there for you to support the pupil afterwards so that you can target and help them with how they're doing. So, but again, it's really dependent on your school and what's expected from whatever country that you're in and your school regulations. So let's take a look at a writing assessment. So for a writing assessment, let's take a look at step 3, groups 1 to 6. Remember, there are no subcategories for writing. So writing has to be done once you've taught all the parts of the writing. The first step would be to download the writing sheet, make copies, and pass it out to your students. The reason this is so important is that for letter sounds, particularly in step 2 and 3, where there are alternative sounds, there are 2 or 3 or 4 lines, depending on how many alternative sounds they're meant to know. So like if you said the letter, if you made the sound E, at some points of the program, they're meant to know more than one grapheme. So the lines are a visual reminder of how many they need to write down. So I would highly recommend printing that. Once you're ready to do the assessment, you're going to click on teacher questions. So the teacher questions have the questions available. You can say the questions out loud and your pupils can write them down. Or you can click on the button for the audio.
Ch, s, f, a.
And with that, underneath, we have a little reminder to you to remind your students that they need to write it in 2 ways or in 3 ways or 4 ways, etc. So there's the letter sounds there. Then we have the tricky word section.
Could.
And remember, if you want an American accent, you change that over in your school management under settings to have accent as American. So right now I have it set to British, but you can change it to American really easily. And then the sentences.
We saw some panthers at the zoo.
So you've got this available. You can say it yourself, or you can have your pupils, or you can have the audio file do it. What I would recommend with the writing assessment is whether you do it as a whole class or in a small group, once you collect the sheets, do not mark them. You don't need to mark them because inputting the results is really quick and easy. We've got the input results section right here. So just remember, I had Freddie connected for this one. Okay, but let's pretend that I was doing a reading assessment with Trish. And last week, my class did the writing assessment. So everybody sat down and did the writing assessment. But this week, I'm focusing on doing reading assessments with my pupils. So I'm sitting down with Trish to do her reading assessment. So I'm in the reading section and I'm doing the same reading test, let's pretend. And I'm doing Trish and I finished doing the reading assessment. And now I say to Trish, could you please go and get the next child? That's Tim. Tim's next on my list. So meanwhile, while Trish goes to get Tim, I can quickly input the writing results. So I click on input results. And when I scan and look at her sheet really quickly, I can see whether she's right or wrong. So again, I can click she wrote it in two ways correctly. That's great. Maybe with the S, she didn't remember how to write C, also makes the sound S, so she made that mistake. I can click manually like this, or I can use the up and down arrow key on my keyboard to make it faster. Or another option is I can click here, mark all correct. This might be really valuable for a student that you know does really well. So I can click it all correct, and then I can scan their sheet and go, oh yeah, okay, they made that one wrong. So I'll just quickly change that one. They spelt because wrong, so I'll make that change. Now for the sentence section, I'm going to look at their page quickly to see how they did. And similar to the reading assessment, any word they spell incorrectly, I'm going to highlight it. Now, you might have a situation where they wrote a word that's plausible. So at this point, we're not expecting them to know alternative spellings for certain sounds. Like, let's take the example, the word sister. Sister ends in ER, but they are also IR or UR has that same sound. At this point, we wouldn't expect them to know which to make. So if they did a plausible spelling, they used IR, let's pretend, we want to mark that as a plausible spelling. So we would change the color to purple. So it's a plausible spelling, meaning that they're using their phonetic knowledge. It's not correct, but they are using their phonetic knowledge. So, and again, it doesn't count towards their overall score if it's plausible. One big exception, however, is tricky words. With tricky words, they are expected to know them. We practice them regularly, and they're expected to memorize how to spell tricky words. So if it is a tricky word, like saw, for example, it cannot be plausible. It's either right or wrong in this case. So again, once I've done that, I can see my summary, just similar to the reading assessment, and I can save it and finish. So that's reading and writing assessments. And I know that was a lot. And again, I just want to remind you that there are training videos that I have created for all the different parts. So there's a whole video on reading assessments. There's a whole one on writing assessments. There's another one just on assessing sentences because it's a little bit different. So you can come back here to watch and learn about anything that you think, what was that again? I didn't quite catch that because I appreciate there is a lot of information. So now what I'd like to show you is looking after you've done a complete assessment, where can you find the information to learn about your class? So under the Pupils tab, I have my entire class listed here. And I've got their names, I have tags. So I was tracking summer birthdays. These are pupils that are a little bit younger in my class because the cutoff date in the UK is August 31st. So any summer birthday, I want to know how they're doing. I've got my English as an additional language pupil. I have pupil premium, and I also have my send children. So there are my 4 tags that I have. I also can see when I assessed them last. And these 2 categories on the right-hand side are really powerful. So let's take a look at them. First of all, based on the last assessment, I can have a snapshot of how my children are performing. So I have 2 pupils that have not completed a full assessment. Remember, Elizabeth, we did 1 assessment. We did the reading assessment, but the reason she's still gray is because we haven't done a writing assessment for her yet. So until we've done a writing assessment, she will still remain gray. Janice here is my send child. She's on a totally different program than the rest of the class. She's working at a much slower pace. So she has not completed all of the first assessment group 1 to 3. So that's why she's gray. And then I've got list of red to dark green. So I can quickly see how they're performing and I can switch it so I can look at how many I've got in the green. The majority of my class is green, which is what I want to see. I also can take a look at growth so that I can have an idea of who is not doing well. And this is based on the last 2 assessments. So if you've done 1 assessment, you will not see anything in the growth category. It will be completely blank. But once you've done 2 assessments, it will compare the most recent assessment to the earlier assessment, and it will tell you whether the child has gone up or down. So Harry, for example, he is in the green category, which is good. However, he has gone down 7%, which is a concern to me. So this growth category is really powerful because without it, you might miss a child who's still doing well, but why are they going down? So you might want to dive in to take a little bit of a closer look at why are they going down? What is it about them that is weaker? So if I click on Harry's account, I can see any of my observations. I can see a quick snapshot of his strengths and focus areas. So it looks like writing tricky words is an area for him. I can also see a quick yearly progress overview. So the overview combines the reading and writing scores. The reading is fine. He's green. He's improved, in fact, so that's great. But his last writing score has really gone down. So if I wanted to look a little more into that detail, I could. I can go down to the writing. This is a second assessment for writing, step 1, groups 4 to 7. So let's take a look at his last assessment. Down here in historical assessments, every single test a pupil has done is saved so that you could at any point go back and look at it. So he was doing poorly in his second writing assessment. So let's take a look at how he did. At the top is a quick snapshot. Tricky words was the target. Remember, tricky words was what was mentioned here. So they're connected. So let's take a look at his tricky words. He got 58% correct. So let's look at the tricky words. Now I know exactly which words he needs to work on. So maybe I send this home for extra homework. I can inform the parents and give a list of the words that he needs to work on. Maybe he needs a little bit of help inside the classroom as well. So that is really there to help guide you. But also, it's nice to celebrate growth. Look at Chloe. She's in the orange category, so she's still not quite where I want her to be. I want her to be in the green category, but she's gone up 12%, which is fantastic, and I want to celebrate that. So maybe I want to just quickly email her parents and say how well she's doing. Same with Jimmy. He's in the red, but he has gone up 9%. So it's really nice that we can quickly filter and see those growth and declines so that we can quickly take action. And finally, the last thing I really want to show you is with Aaron's category, with his report, I put a little bit more data in just to show you how powerful it is to see trends over time. So on the surface, it looks like he's doing really great, right? Because he's all in the green, and that's what I want to see. But his most recent assessment here is at 65%. It's grayed out, which means that it's not complete. So it's missing something. That could be, remember how we can, in the reading assessment, we can do half of the assessment or just one part of it. So if you do one part of it and you haven't done the whole part of it, then it will remain gray until you've done everything. So if I take a look at his reading assessment, I notice a couple things. One, I notice that I've got some stars that are just outlines. And that means that his first test, this is the second assessment, his first test was at 78%, which was a little bit below green. Green is 80%. So we did a little bit more reinforcement and we retested him, and now he's at bright dark green, so 95%, which is great. Then the third assessment, he was also a little bit low. We did a little bit more targeted intervention, and now he's at 90%, which is great. And now we again see this. So what I'm starting to notice is that Aaron needs a little bit more reinforcement. And this might be something that he could provide or get more support from home, maybe. Or maybe I need to start doing a little bit of work, just 5 minutes every day, first thing in the morning, right after lunch, just to give him that support. If I look at his writing, you see the same thing, that he just needs a little bit more time to get that support. And by the way, the reason that gray was there was because he hasn't done the writing test for the fourth assessment. So for the fourth assessment, he's done the reading, but not the writing. And so that's why it's gray. So if we take Aaron as an example of someone who needs to have a reassessment, so let's take a look at how we do that. How do we do a reassessment? So I've given him a little bit of extra support. He is ready now for a reassessment. So he needs assessment again on step 2, unit 7 to 13. So let's go into assessments. Let's start it. It was step 2, unit 7 to 13. It's a reading assessment that he needs, and it's Aaron. So here he is. And now let's start it. So this is going to look exactly how we did our first assessment, except for one new button has popped up. It says import latest result. If I click on this, you will see all of his last scores on the assessment. So I can see exactly what he got wrong the first time he took the test. This is great because I have two options. One, I can reassess him on all the questions and see how he's doing. Does he still remember how to make this sound? Does he still remember how to say these words like annoy and sly? If he makes a mistake, I could then make it wrong. I mean, hopefully that's not going to happen, right? But I could do that. And equally, if he says something right, I can make it correct. So that's option one, that I reassess on everything. Or option 2 is I just target the questions he got wrong last time. Maybe I'm a little bit short on time and I don't want to reassess everything. So remember, I could print off the page and I could just point to the parts that I want to reassess. And if he does say it, so here with the Y, he knew the I and the Y sound initially, but he forgot the E sound. So now he's got it, I can make it correct. So maybe I just am short on time and I only want to reassess on the parts that he got wrong last time. And maybe I make the choice that I will reassess everything on the sentences. So I again can just leave this and make changes to it, or I can clear all the marks and start from fresh. And he reads the sentences, and then I just make any changes that I need to. And so when that's done, let's just make a few more right. Let's pretend that he got a few more right because I've been working so hard with him. You know, he's going to make a lot more improvements. So let's just do that right now. And then we save it. So he's agreeing across the way. So that's awesome. That's what I really want. I'm going to save it and I'm going to look at Aaron's report right now. So this is Aaron here, and we just reassessed him, and you can see that now he's at 89%. And that star that was solid has now gone to an outline star because that is the old assessment. So you will always be able to see the old assessment and the new assessment. And in fact, you can assess a third time if you really need to. But what's really important is that you always have access to see it, and you have the historical data that's down here. So anytime you want to look at any of the old assessments, you can right here in the historical area. So that was a lot of information, you guys, and I know that I've gone through that quite quickly, but I know we're almost out of time, and I just want to mention, and some of these things came up before, but essentially it's really important that you use this tool to match the requirements of your school and your government from wherever you are. And we've tried our very best to make the tool flexible so that you can use it in multiple ways. A few questions that people are interested in. So one is about security. So everything is stored securely on our UK servers, and the only people that have access to the information are the assigned teachers and the admin. And we also, it's included in Jolly Classroom right now until the end of this calendar year. And again, support, if you have any questions or comments or feedback or ideas, please reach out. We are actively listening and we are making a lot of changes. And again, anytime there is a change, I will be posting a video to pop up here. And when you first log in to Jolly Classroom, there will be a pop-up to say, here are some changes. Do you want to watch this video? And you can take a look. So thank you so much. Ollie, I'm wondering if there's any questions.
I'm still here. I am here, furiously typing to answer some questions. There was a question from Elisa, and it was, are placement tests available as well? These are particularly needed for those people who join school when the academic year has already started.
Yeah, such a good question. And I appreciate that that is really needed. At the moment, we do not have a placement test. And I'm not sure whether or not we have plans for it. So it's important that if a lot of people feel passionate about something, that you do let us know so that we can make those things. What I would suggest is two things. One, it's always good to start from the beginning to see where they're at and work your way through. So you could just work your way through the reading step by step, obviously doing it in small chunks. You don't want to sit the child down for the whole day, of course. But the other option that you have is this phonics screen check test, which is the UK teachers will be really familiar with that. Let's just take a quick look. It's broken up into two parts. So the section one are the easier words, and we've got alien, so the nonsense words and real words. And then we also have section two, which are the alternative sounds. And we've got, again, alien and real words. And a lot of teachers have mentioned to me that this is a really valuable place to start, so that if you've got a new child, you can give this assessment to them and see, you can notice patterns like they're making mistakes in the middle sound, they're missing that middle sound, or they're not understanding, if they're making a lot of mistakes in section two, then you know that's the alternative sounds. And that might quickly narrow in, okay, section two is equivalent to our step 2 and 3, whereas section 1 is equivalent to our step 1. So if they do really well with section 1, then you don't need to worry about step 1 in our program. So that could be a good solution as well.
That's great. Thank you. There's a few people asking for recordings. We should be sending them out after every webinar. We do try. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I don't get through spam filters. If you ever can't find them, they are all on our YouTube channel. So if you ever need them, you can rewatch them there. For whatever reason, you may want to come back to Jolly Literacy or this later on. This should go out on Friday on email. It won't be tomorrow. We've got a few things going on here at work, but it will come out on Friday. So you will get a recording of this. So we'll make sure that's the case. Someone asked how many pupils you can have in a class. Jen, I'm pretty sure it's unlimited.
Yeah, we don't have a limit to that. Yeah.
That's great. And our subscription is based on per school. It's not per teacher, per pupil, per class, whatever. It's a per school basis. So what you see there is, if you've got 6 classes or you've got 3, it's the same price, and we do it that way. And I think Lucia asked, but what can the pupil see after being assessed if they're logged in as a user? So the pupil doesn't see any kind of results from that.
No, they don't see anything. All they're going to see is it's just going to look like this, but without this at the bottom and without any of the tabs or the X. It's just going to be the cards. That's it.
Yeah, that's great. And just one last question. If you evaluate children multiple times in the same category, will these results be recorded individually depending on the date?
Yeah, so they will be. I don't know. The only thing I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't tested it, is how many stars we can get in one section. Because every time
Bullet.
you do it, yeah. And so I know that the dev guys, you can see that these stars are close together, so they had to put them a little bit side by side rather than up and down. And so the thing is, like, we want to build it the way that it needs to be built. So if you are finding that you need to do multiple assessments for whatever reason, and that's happening, then that creates a new problem for us to solve, and we'll think of a way to solve it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm mindful of time. I want to say a huge thanks to Jen. A lot of preparation goes into this, but also 12 months of work building this and to make it better than anything else that's out there. One of the key things in here is that you can track pupils' progress. Most of our competitors do not allow that, and that's something that we feel really passionately about and something that we do want to be there. It's all about community, so the information and the feedback you give us helps us build this. The reason we built it is because people asked for it. And we are really listening to everything you've got to say. The recording will be shared over email in the next couple of days. A few people asking about certificates of attendance. I'm going to start looking at that. It's not something we do today. Technically difficult when you've got 800 people that register for it, but we will sort that out. And in the meantime, if you do want to find out anything more about assessments, there is a link going in the chat right now. It's over on our website, so you can find out a bit more there if you want. You can always email us. And there's lots and lots of exciting stuff coming in the next few months. So please stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you all again. Jen, thank you very much. And secondly, I'm not Yvonne, I'm Ollie. So if you need to email me any questions, ollie@jollylearning.co.uk. And we are bang on time. So, ladies, gents, thank you very, very much for
Perfect.
joining us today. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.